hunting them at the far reaches of the earth and beyond. And with him lies our salvation.
Doom is a series known for its gore and non-stop hand cramp inducing combat, and I really enjoyed the 2016 reboot, although it wasn't without its issues. The platforming in between the combat was tedious and imprecise, and at the same time towards the end of the game the combat felt somewhat mindless. Doom Eternal, on the other hand, is not mindless. It is actually one of the smartest games so far this year. While many, including myself, expected Doom Eternal to just be more of the same, which would have been just fine, id Software have dramatically changed the core gameplay of Doom in polarizing fashion. Some fans loathe the changes, while some believe it's a breath of fresh air and a much needed change. But what did they do to such a basic formula? Right off the bat, you will notice that Doom Eternal severely limits your ammo capacity. This initially frustrated the hell out of me. The game quickly teaches you that the chainsaw, which in the last entry was used very sparingly only as a last resort option, replenishes about half your ammo upon use. I also realised that the chainsaw fuel refills automatically, allowing you to use it on a regular basis. It also teaches you about weak points and how the different enemy types should be tackled. The Revenant's jetpack missiles, the Mancubus arm turrets and the Doom Hunter's sled are all weak points that when attacked, deal far more damage than a regular shot. They also disable their respective weapon for the rest of the fight. Other enemies have specific weapons which take them down easier, such as the Cacodemon, whose mouth opens up for a grenade, and the Shield Guard, who explodes when shot by plasma weapons. Not only do enemies have specific weaknesses to different weapons, but the many resources the player needs to survive, health, ammo, armor, all drop in a particular way. This adds another layer of complexity which the player subconsciously has to consider when taking on an arena of vicious demons. About an hour or so into the game, after gaining a few different weapons and understanding how the chainsaw became a critical part of the gameplay loop, it all clicked, and I began to love every second of it. All of these different layers of gameplay that I've mentioned all feed into rapid, on-the-fly decision making that is unlike most other FPS games that I've played. They are usually pretty basic with how they approach combat. Grab a weapon, find cover, and peek every now and again to pick off enemies. Not Doom Eternal though. Doom has a somewhat overwhelming amount of things going on around the player with copious amounts of ways to tackle them. But none of it is wasted. Every enemy, every upgrade, every ability, they all matter, and they all have to be considered by the player during each and every tussle with the mortally challenged. It's this delicate balance of abilities, enemies, weapons, and resource types that gives Doom Eternal an almost puzzle-like feel to the otherwise gruesome and fast-paced combat.
The generator will destroy the nest.
The player has to constantly take into account the ammo supply, which enemies they should deal with first, how to take them down, when they should use their abilities, and so on. For a more visual example rather than just me explaining it, here's one of the many different scenarios that the player would be presented with in combat. Here I've got very low ammo, very low health, but only just a few enemies left. But what should I do? Should I use my remaining ammo to take them down, glory kill them to take some health for the next fight, or do I use whatever remaining chainsaw fuel and grenades I have left to ensure I have enough ammo and not risk wasting an extra life? Eventually I decided to chew through whatever remaining ammo I had, just to be sure that I made it to the next section and wouldn't have to redo the whole fight. That was just one example of the many scenarios that the player will be faced during every mission in the game. The weapon variety overall is another excellent facet to Doom Eternal, where compared to other big budget FPS franchises like Call of Duty, which is also known for its fast-paced combat, Doom Eternal is much more inventive when it comes to weapon use. While Call of Duty does have the typical shotguns, rifles and snipers, you don't really need to use anything besides the assault rifles, and you could easily plow through the whole campaign using the same weapons. In Doom Eternal, None of the weapons are wasted and each have their own upgrades and mods which are useful in many different ways. And they all feel great with chunky sound effects and unique animations for each weapon. You might watch some Doom Eternal Let's Plays and trailers and believe that it's just purely mindless and non-stop destruction. That's certainly what I thought I was getting into before playing, especially with the marketing glorifying its grand and honestly ridiculous settings, which are crazy even for this franchise's standards. But it is the opposite of mindless. It is controlled chaos where rapid problem solving is just as important as the carnage.